everyone, and welcome to Story with Hala 41. Thank you so much for joining me this week for our Story with Hala. So, as you can see, we have a different location, we have a different setup. The lighting here is better today, and it's just a more organized setup. So, I'm just going to be using this sort of like this space here from now on, and you might see it in a few of my other Story with Halas. So, today we are going to be doing another craft in another book as usual, and the book has something to do with the craft, sort of. Usually it's easier to pick up books and stuff when there's a theme, like when Ramadan and Eid and like Earth Day and stuff like that. Actually, I missed Earth Day. I don't think we did anything. We need to remember to do that next Earth Day. Like there wasn't any themes this week, but I did find a good book, and I did find a craft to do. And I'm sure you've all done this craft before at least once in your lives. It's like a very traditional craft, I guess. No, it's not traditional, but I'm sure you've all done it once in your life. So the book I'm going to be reading is called Fishermen Through and Through. And again, it's on Epic, so if you want to go check it out, if you have Epic, it's a really good book. So let us start reading it now. Let me share my screen. Epic Books for Kids. There we go. Fishermen Through and Through by Colleen Sidor. I hope I'm saying that right. Oops, sorry. There once lived 3 fishermen, Peter, Santiago, and Ahab. I hope I'm saying that right again. They were tough. They were as salty as the bottom of a pretzel bag. They were as weathered as a twisted stick of driftwood. Yes, these 3 were fishermen through and through. Which is not to say that they didn't sometimes dream of things other than fish, nutted nets, and salt water. Peter had heard of entire countries covered in vast seas of sand that spread faster than a body can imagine. He dreamt of one day sailing a golden desert on the back of a camel. Santiago's attention soared all the way to his feathered pals in the sky. He watched them gliding in a vast sea of clouds, stretching farther than a body can dream. He longed to sail the sky in a balloon and gaze at his beloved sea with the eyes of a gull. And Ahab, even though Ahab's favorite color was the blue-green-gray of the sea, he had once seen a photograph of endless fields of rainbow tulips in Holland. What he wouldn't have given for his eyes to sail a vast sea of wind-tossed flowers as far as the body could know. And even though they were weathered and salty and tough as the barnacles on the bottom of their barnacles at the bottom of their boat, on dreamy days when the sea was gentle, they were known to talk of such things as sand dunes and clouds and tulips. It was on one of these dreamy days that, as they drew in their nets, they saw something as unlikely as a rolling ocean of tulips beneath their rudder. They wondered at first if the sun was playing tricks, but as sure as there are sunfish in the ocean, they saw, nestled among the dark blue crabs and glinting scales of silverfish, a lobster as white as the clouds in Santiago's daydreams. "Blow me down!" Peter carefully untangled the lily lobster from the net while Santiago emptied their large bait bucket and Ahab filled it with seawater. The 3 fishermen stared in silent wonder, for they weren't so weathered and salty and tough that they didn't recognize beauty when they found it doing the front crawl in their bucket. The white lobster stared back with equal wonder, for never in its life had it seen anything quite like these 3 strange creatures with neither shells nor scales. Man and Christosine sailed this way, admiring one another, until the sun got snoozy and drifted down on an orange cloud toward the lip of the sea. As Santiago made ready to return the white lobster to the water, Peter raised his hand. "Wait, perhaps we are being a little selfish?" Ahab and Santiago understood. Why should theirs be the only eyes to have marveled at this amazing miracle? Indeed, Once they had docked their boat and taken care of the day's catch, the three fishermen trudged heavily up the hill, taking turns between them carrying the bucket. They stopped when they reached a restaurant called the Fisherman's Net, and they stayed long enough to see their new amigo set up grandly in its own glass tank of seawater. They watched the expressions of awe and delight on the faces of customers who dropped into the fisherman's net for a cup of coffee and left with a memory they wouldn't soon forget. Surely they had done the right thing. Eventually, the customers of the fisherman's net began to wonder if they weren't being a tad selfish with their white secret. Surely others would delight in seeing what, so far, only their eyes had beheld. When the word of the albino lobster began to travel, so did photographers, marine biologists, newsmen, and even a man from Ripley's Believe It or Not, to gawk at this rare creature. The fishermen were kept busy for 3 days with radio interviews and television appearances and long cups of coffee with news reporters and locals who were enjoying the fishermen's fame. Santiago, Peter, and Ahab were even offered money for the lobster, as if it was theirs to sell. When Peter said no, the offer was doubled, and when Santiago said no, it was tripled. When the buyer offered an amount that silenced the no was about to slip from Ahab's lip. Instead, his mouth dropped open in amazement, for that sum of money would more than allow Peter to sail a sea of sand, Ahab a sea of clouds, and Santiago a sea of flowers as far as the body could see. Blow me down! What were they to do? They spent that night in their small homes dreaming more clearly than ever of golden sand, rainbow tulips, and pink sunset clouds. They might as well have been there. And maybe they were, but their sleep was fitful, and all three found themselves walking off into the sounds of the night. Santiago yawned and listened to his complaining feet. Not in a very long time had they planted on firm ground with such a long stretch. They sorely craved the rolling swell that only a boat's bottom at sea could provide. Ahab, meanwhile, was listening to owls and nighthawks outside his window. 3 days from his beloved seagulls had left him lonely. In his small cottage, Peter listened to the distant thrum of waves kissing the shore before running back out to the sea. Finally, he put his coat on over his pajamas, and like the waves, rushed seaward. Blow me down if he didn't see two familiar old salts on the shore with bare feet and pajama bottoms wet with surf. All three stood silently trying to imagine life without the sea. When they finally pulled their glances away from the waves and looked at each other, their sad eyes began to twinkle and wrinkle at the corners to make room for knowing grins. Joe, the owner of the Fisherman's Net restaurant, never did find out about his open window midnight visitors had been, and he puzzled forever about why they had chosen to take the white lobster instead of the sacks of money that the famous crustacean had brought to his till. Joe was glad, and not because he still had his money. As a child, he had kept a beautiful butterfly in a fishbowl with a plastic bag lid until the monarch folded his wings and lay lifeless on the bottom. The sight of that empty aquarium seemed as beautiful to Joe as a lidless fishbowl. He went back to bed and dreamt of a butterfly landing gently on his nose before taking to the skies. And the three fishermen? As you know, they were tough and as salty as 3 wrinkled pickles in a very old jar. No tears or sad farewells from these tough-as-barnacles sailors. They simply said, "Welcome home," and smiled as they heard the splash. When they watched, flashlights in hand, as the white lobster turned first to yellow, then green, then brown, as it so slowly sank out of light. For they weren't wrinkled pickles in a jar. They were fishermen, through and through. Yes, born fishermen, through and through. The end. Now this book I find was a very, very good book, and the moral, and it was a very descriptive book too. I want to talk about this a bit first. I used to have a teacher in the 3rd grade and the 4th grade, and she would do a lot of writing projects with us, and I mean a lot of writing projects. And so she would describe really good writing as golden writing, you know. And this golden writing had a lot of adjectives and really, really descriptive words, you know, really good words, and what my current teacher likes to call juicy words, I guess. We have a whole chart and list of juicy words that we use in our writing. And so in this book, I found a lot of golden writing, and it's a really descriptive and really good book. and even without the pictures, I can imagine it in my head. And it was like a really good book. Also, it actually inspired me a little bit because we're doing a poetry unit in school, and he used a lot of like alliteration, onomatopoeia, and like really a lot of like descriptive good words, and also repetition. Repetition is a very important thing in a poem, and maybe not even just a poem, in a story. It makes it sound like more, I don't know, more descriptive, I guess, just better. It makes it sound better. It's like it adds a nice sort of twist to your short story or poem. So I really liked that book, and I feel like the moral of the story was money doesn't always buy happiness, and you shouldn't use nature for it. So that was kind of like what I thought the moral of the story was. And if you thought different, make sure to comment that. And if you are watching live, I know not many people could watch live because they're busy or they're doing other things, because it is a busy time. It's rush hour and people are just getting home from work and stuff. But if you are watching live, or if you're watching this later, feel free to keep it in the comments if you think there's a different moral of the story. I'd love to discuss with you guys with my live viewers. So next is this craft. Now I'm actually very excited for this because it brings me back to like the kindergarten, the kindergarten. It brings me back to like the first grade and kindergarten. So so basically the craft is, hold on, let me share my screen because I think you can all sort of think you'll once you see what I'm talking about. Thank you. Once you see, yeah, I'm sure we've all done one of these crafts a while ago. Let me just play the video. Let's skip a little bit in this video because it is long. And over here, she's just kind of just finishing up coloring this. Adding a little bit of, oh, okay, here comes the important part. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take the part where the teeth are, and we just, actually, let me just show the video a bit first. Take the part where the teeth are, and you fold it top to the bottom. And then you just secure it with a popsicle stick or a pen, and then she'll fold nicely. And then fold the top to the bottom of the other teeth. Another popsicle stick to secure your bottom. And then opens, closes. When I watched this, it really brought me back to the first grade, so I hope it does too with you. I sort of did some of this craft in advance. I made my little fish. Oh, flip it down. I made my little fish over here, and I'm just going to add a little bit more of details here to it. Yeah, the laptop I'm using right now to film this is really, it's like making the noise like it's the world is ending. It's like shh. Maybe I didn't use the best colors, but I think it looks fine. Might just add some stripes or something to spice it up a little bit, you know. Let's just add some more of these. Maybe I'll do one more. Okay, one more stripe is finished, and some dots here and there. I don't know, just to bring some design to the fish because it looks kind of plain. And I will name my fish Sally. Just a funny little name for my fish. I'll name her Sally. Okay, so now we're gonna take Sally and we're gonna fold her where the teeth is. So just right about here. So let's fold it. Okay. Perfect. And now we'll take it all the way to the bottom, just like this. Perfect. Ooh, I'm actually excited for this. Aha! There it is. It just looks like a normal fish. Aha! And then fish. And I love this. I used to do this. I used to do this all the time. It used to be my favorite activity. Whenever I went over to one of my friends' houses, or honestly, when I was just bored, I used to make like 50 of these, and then like pass them out to the members of my family, and or just like keep them as a keepsake. Like I think I still have like a drawer full of like my old artwork from when I was little, and a bunch of it is filled with these little drawings. I used to make them all the time. It used to be my favorite thing to do. I can't close it. And as you can see on the bottom, I added some like little barnacles or seaweed and stuff like that. And so that is our craft. Okay, so now that we finished up Sally, I believe that is the end of our story with Hala 41. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. So thank you for coming, and I'll see you next week.